The air in the living room was thick with unspoken accusations and the acrid scent of burnt ambition. Anya stood by the antique mahogany bookshelf, her fingers tracing the spines of forgotten novels, while her parents, faces etched with a familiar blend of disappointment and exasperation, cornered Liam. His shoulders were hunched, his usually vibrant eyes downcast, a posture Anya knew well. It was the stance of a man caught, again, in the quicksand of his own making. "Liam, this is it," her father, Robert, stated, his voice a low rumble that vibrated with finality. "We're done. No more bailouts. No more second chances." Her mother, Eleanor, clutched a tissue, her gaze a mixture of sorrow and weary resignation. "Your father and we just can't watch you do this to yourself anymore. To us." Liam mumbled something incoherent, a pathetic whine that grated on Anya's nerves. He was 30, not 13, yet he still reverted to this childlike helplessness when confronted with the consequences of his reckless choices. Anya, at 32, was the antithesis of her brother. She was the one who always had a plan, a meticulously crafted budget, a career trajectory that soared steadily upward. She was the golden child, the one who brought home achievements and stability, earning the quiet, approving nods from their parents that Liam so desperately craved but never seemed to grasp. But despite the chasm between their natures, Anya loved Liam fiercely. She remembered the mischievous boy who'd once convinced her to climb the old oak tree, the protective older brother who'd chased away bullies, the charming young man who could light up a room with his infectious laughter. That Liam was buried deep beneath layers of poor decisions and mounting debt, always chasing the elusive, glittering promise of easy money. This time it was a particularly nasty loan from a business associate, a shadowy figure Liam had met through a crypto scheme that had, predictably, imploded. The sum was staggering, enough to buy a small house, and the threats were growing increasingly explicit. Anya watched her parents' faces, saw the defeat settling in their eyes, and a cold dread gripped her. This wasn't just about money. It was about the slow, agonizing erosion of their hope for Liam, for their family. They were on the verge of cutting him off, not just financially but emotionally. The thought of her family splintering, of Liam being truly adrift, was unbearable. She had always been the fixer, the bridge builder. It was her role, her burden, and her quiet pride. A deep breath, a silent prayer, and Anya stepped forward. "Wait," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, cutting through the tense silence. All eyes turned to her, surprise warring with exhaustion. "Don't cut him off. Not yet." Liam looked up, a flicker of bewildered hope in his eyes. Her parents stared, bewildered. "I'll pay it," Anya announced, the words feeling both foreign and inevitable on her tongue. "I'll pay off the debt." A collective gasp filled the room. Liam's jaw dropped. Her parents exchanged a look of stunned disbelief. "Anya, no," her father said, shaking his head. "That's your life savings. Your down payment for that apartment you've been dreaming of." "It's more important than an apartment right now," Anya insisted, though her heart ached at the thought of her carefully saved nest egg vanishing. She had envisioned that apartment, a sanctuary of her own, for years. But the image of her family fractured, of Liam lost, was far more painful. This is a chance. A real chance for Liam to start over, without this hanging over his head. A chance for us as a family to move past this. She looked directly at Liam, her gaze unwavering. "But this is it, Liam. My last dime. My last ounce of faith. You have to promise me, promise all of us, that this is the turning point. No more schemes. No more debt. A real job. A real life." Liam, tears welling in his eyes, rushed forward and enveloped her in a crushing hug. "Oh, Anya. My God, Anya. Thank you, thank you. You're saving my life. I promise, I swear, this is it. I'll change. I'll make you proud. I'll make it all up to you." His words were fervent, desperate, and for a fleeting moment, Anya allowed herself to believe them. Her parents, though still wary, were visibly relieved. A fragile hope, born from Anya's sacrifice, settled over the room. For the first time in years, the tension eased, replaced by a tentative sense of possibility. Anya had bought Liam a clean slate, and perhaps, just perhaps, she had bought her family peace. The weeks that followed were a deceptive calm. Liam, true to his word at least initially, seemed to turn a corner. He landed a job at a small marketing firm, a position Anya had subtly helped him secure through a contact. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, respectable work. Family dinners became less fraught with anxiety. Liam was more present, less distracted, and for a while, the dark cloud that had perpetually hung over him seemed to dissipate. Anya felt a quiet sense of triumph. Her sacrifice, she thought, was finally bearing fruit. Her parents, cautiously optimistic, began to relax. They praised Liam's newfound dedication, his maturity. Anya saw their hopeful glances, the subtle nods of approval they now directed at him, and a warmth spread through her. This was what she had wanted. This was worth it. But the afterglow was short-lived, fading like a summer sunset. The subtle shifts began almost imperceptibly. Liam started making offhand remarks, seemingly innocent at first. You know, Anya, you're so good at the whole corporate ladder thing. Me? I'm more of a big-picture guy. Too much structure for my creative spirit. Or, you're always so careful with money, sis. Sometimes you just gotta live a little, you know? He'd chuckle, a dismissive sound that grated on her nerves. He began to subtly downplay her role in his turnaround, attributing his newfound stability solely to his own epiphany and hard work. Anya would bite her tongue, reminding herself that the goal was Liam's success, not her recognition. Then came the financial red flags. A new, expensive watch glinting on his wrist. Designer sneakers that cost more than her monthly grocery bill. He'd brush off her questions with vague answers about good deals or gifts. He started frequenting trendy restaurants and exclusive clubs, places well beyond the means of his entry-level marketing salary. Anya's anxiety, long dormant, began to stir. She saw social media posts of him surrounded by a new flashy crowd, their lives seemingly built on appearances and superficial connections. And then the twist. He introduced them to Chloe. Chloe was a whirlwind of perfectly styled blonde hair, dazzling smiles, and an air of effortless sophistication. She claimed to be an influencer, and spoke of luxury brands and exotic travel with casual ease. She was outwardly charming, showering Liam with compliments and their parents with effusive praise. Anya, however, felt an immediate prickle of unease. Chloe's compliments felt a little too practiced, her smiles a little too wide. She had a way of subtly dominating conversations, always steering them back to Liam's brilliance and potential, while simultaneously, almost imperceptibly, undermining Anya. Anya, you're so sweet for always looking out for Liam, Chloe would purr, her eyes flicking to Liam. But he's such a strong, independent man. He needs space to truly shine, doesn't he? Or, Liam tells me you're quite the financial whiz, Anya. But sometimes you just have to trust your gut, right, Liam? Fortune favors the bold. She'd laugh, a tinkling sound that made Anya's teeth clench. Their parents, utterly charmed by Chloe and so desperate to believe in Liam's transformation, were completely blind to her manipulative edge. They gushed about how Chloe was such a good influence, how she had brought out the best in Liam. She's so positive, Anya, her mother would say, oblivious to the subtle digs. Liam seems so happy with her. It's wonderful. Anya would nod, a tight smile plastered on her face, feeling an increasing sense of isolation. Liam, emboldened by Chloe's unwavering admiration and their parents' approval, became increasingly distant and arrogant. He stopped taking Anya's calls as frequently, always claiming to be busy with Chloe or his new circle of friends. When they did speak, his tone was condescending, his patience thin. He seemed to genuinely believe he was a self-made success, his past failures a distant, irrelevant memory. The debt, Anya's sacrifice, seemed to have completely vanished from his consciousness, replaced by a puffed-up sense of self-importance. The gnawing anxiety in Anya's stomach became a constant companion. She saw the new car, leased of course but far too expensive for Liam's income. She saw the lavish trips Chloe posted on social media, always with Liam by her side, living a life of apparent luxury. She knew deep down that this couldn't last. The house of cards was being built again, higher and faster than before. The breaking point arrived with a cold, sickening jolt. Anya had been trying to reach Liam for days about a family matter, but he'd been unreachable. Concerned, she decided to drop by his apartment, hoping to catch him. As she approached, she saw an envelope sticking out of his mailbox, addressed to him, but with a logo she recognized from a past, disastrous loan application of his. Her heart pounded. Curiosity, mixed with a terrible premonition, compelled her to glance at it. It was a statement from a high-interest lender. The balance was astronomical, far exceeding his previous debt. It wasn't just a new debt. It was a new, even more reckless high-risk investment scheme, clearly facilitated by Chloe's connections, that had already started to spiral. The paper trembled in her hand. The numbers blurred. This wasn't just a relapse, it was an escalation. Liam hadn't changed. He had simply used her sacrifice, her hard-earned money, as a launchpad for even greater recklessness. He had taken her clean slate and scribbled all over it with the same old dangerous patterns. And Chloe, the charming, supportive girlfriend, was clearly an enabler, perhaps even a co-conspirator in his financial folly. The betrayal was a bitter taste in her mouth, far more potent than the initial financial loss. It wasn't just her money he had squandered. It was her trust, her hope, her desperate desire to finally see her brother thrive. The fragile peace she had bought for her family had been a mirage, and now the storm was brewing again, more ferocious than ever. Anya knew with chilling clarity that she could no longer stay silent. This time the truth had to come out no matter how painful. She had to confront him and, more importantly, her parents had to see the reality of the situation, even if it shattered their carefully constructed illusion of Liam's redemption. This time there would be no more quiet sacrifices. This time she would fight back. Her hands shook as she drove home, the loan statement clutched tightly. She spent the next few days meticulously gathering every piece of evidence she could find. Bank statements, screenshots of Chloe's extravagant social media posts, records of the new, high-interest loans Liam had taken out. Each piece of paper was a fresh stab to her heart, confirming the depth of his deception. The charming smiles, the promises of change, the seemingly genuine gratitude, all of it had been a performance. She orchestrated a family meeting, framing it as a casual Sunday brunch, knowing that if she revealed the true purpose, Liam would find an excuse to disappear. Her stomach churned with a mixture of dread and grim determination. She didn't want to hurt Liam, but she couldn't stand by and watch him destroy himself and drag their parents down with him. This was about accountability, about stopping the cycle of financial ruin and emotional manipulation. The brunch started innocently enough, strained pleasantries exchanged over coffee and pastries. Liam was there, radiating a false confidence, Chloe by his side, her arm possessively linked through his. Anya waited until the plates were cleared, until the air grew still with the unspoken expectation of what was to come. Liam, Anya began, her voice calm, almost unnervingly so. We need to talk about your finances. The shift in the room was immediate. Liam's easy smile vanished, replaced by a wary frown. Chloe's eyes narrowed, a subtle tightening around her perfectly made-up mouth. Her parents looked confused, then apprehensive. Anya laid out the documents on the coffee table, neatly organized, each piece of paper a damning indictment. I found this, she said, pushing the new loan statement towards Liam. And this, she added, sliding over screenshots of Chloe's posts showing luxury purchases and trips. And these are the bank statements showing the withdrawals, the transfers to accounts I don't recognize, the escalating debt. Liam's face flushed crimson. What is this, Anya? Are you spying on me? This is an invasion of my privacy, he blustered, his voice rising. You have no right. I have every right, Anya countered, her voice still low but firm. When I drained my life savings to save you from ruin, I earned the right to know you weren't just going to repeat the same mistakes. I earned the right to know you weren't going to lie to us again. Chloe interjected, her voice dripping with feigned concern. Anya, darling, I think you're being a little overprotective. Liam is a grown man. He's doing so well. You're just jealous of his success, aren't you? You can't stand that he's finally thriving without your constant interference. Liam seized on Chloe's words, his anger escalating. That's it, isn't it, Anya? You just can't stand that I'm not your little project anymore. You want to control everything. You want all the credit. Well, guess what? I paid you back for that debt, didn't I? With that generous gift I gave you last month. So you have no claim over me or my life or my money. Anya stared at him aghast. The generous gift was a paltry sum, a fraction of what she had given him, framed as a casual gesture, not a repayment. He was twisting the narrative, brazenly lying, painting himself as the wronged party. "Liam, that was barely a fraction of what I gave you," Anya said, her voice trembling now, not with fear, but with a profound sense of betrayal. "And you know it. You're in deeper debt now than you were before." Liam stood up, his face contorted with rage and shame. He pointed a trembling finger at Anya. "You know what, Anya? I'm done with you. Done with your judgment, your control, your constant need to fix me. I don't need you. I don't need your money. I don't need your approval. I'm my own man now. And you know what else? I'm disowning you. Publicly. Right here, right now. I want nothing to do with you ever again." The words hung in the air, sharp and brutal, slicing through the last vestiges of Anya's hope. Her parents gasped, their faces pale with shock. They looked from Liam's furious face to Anya's devastated one, their expressions a mixture of horror and disbelief. Liam had just publicly disowned her, the sister who had sacrificed everything for him, in front of the very people she had tried to protect. Chloe, beside him, offered a small, triumphant smirk. The betrayal was complete. Anya felt a coldness spread through her, a numbness that was almost a relief after the searing pain. Liam's declaration, so cruel and absolute, had severed the last fragile thread of hope she had clung to. Her parents, stunned into silence, seemed to shrink in their seats, caught in the crossfire of a battle they couldn't comprehend. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, until Chloe, ever the opportunist, broke it with a saccharine tone. "Well, I think that settles it, doesn't it, darling? Some people just can't handle seeing others succeed." She squeezed Liam's arm, a possessive gesture that made Anya's stomach churn. Liam, still fuming, nodded curtly, avoiding Anya's gaze. Anya didn't scream, didn't cry. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to feel but a profound emptiness. She simply stood, gathered her meticulously arranged documents, and walked out of the room, out of the house, leaving behind the wreckage of her family and the brother who had just publicly erased her from his life. The days that followed were a blur of grief and disbelief. Anya went through the motions of her life, but her heart felt like a hollowed-out shell. The betrayal was a constant ache, a phantom limb of a relationship that had been brutally amputated. Her parents called, hesitant and apologetic, trying to mediate, to understand. "He was so angry, Anya," her mother would plead. "He didn't mean it." But Anya knew he did. The words had been laced with a venom born of shame and a desire to escape accountability. Meanwhile, Liam's house of cards, built on Anya's sacrifice and Chloe's false promises, began its inevitable collapse. Emboldened by Chloe's constant flattery and his own inflated ego, Liam plunged deeper into the high-risk investment scheme. He took out more loans, convinced he was on the verge of a massive payout. Chloe was his constant companion, egging him on, celebrating every imaginary victory. She encouraged him to quit his marketing job, telling him it was beneath his vision. Liam, blinded by her flattery and his own hubris, complied. The downfall was swift and brutal. The investment opportunity turned out to be a sophisticated scam, orchestrated by the very shadowy figures Liam had borrowed from before. The promised returns never materialized. Instead, the principal vanished, leaving him with an astronomical, unmanageable debt, far greater than anything he had faced before. The threats from his creditors escalated, no longer veiled but direct and terrifying. When the news hit, it wasn't a quiet implosion. It was a public spectacle. The local news picked up on the scam, featuring stories of victims, and Liam's name, along with his involvement, became public knowledge. Social media, which had once been Chloe's platform for showcasing their lavish lifestyle, became a forum for public ridicule and condemnation. His name was synonymous with failure, with recklessness. And Chloe? The moment Liam's financial world crumbled, she vanished. No dramatic farewell, no tearful goodbyes. One day she was there, the next she was gone, along with a significant portion of Liam's remaining liquid assets, which she had subtly convinced him to transfer to a joint account for investment purposes. Her true opportunistic nature was laid bare. She was not a partner. She was a parasite, feeding on his ambition and leaving him utterly drained. Liam was left with nothing. His apartment, once a symbol of his supposed success, was repossessed. His car was seized. He was jobless, homeless, and facing legal action from multiple creditors. The friends Chloe had introduced him to, The ones who had reveled in his fleeting prosperity disappeared like smoke. He was completely isolated, stripped bare of everything he had built on lies and borrowed money. The public disowning of Anya, the sister who had truly loved and supported him, now echoed with a chilling irony. Karma, it seemed, had a cruel sense of poetic justice. Her parents, witnessing Liam's spectacular downfall, were finally forced to confront the painful truth. The illusion they had so desperately clung to, the belief in Liam's transformation, shattered into a million pieces. They saw the depth of his deception, the extent of Chloe's manipulation, and the profound, selfless sacrifice Anya had made. The regret in their eyes was palpable, a heavy burden they carried. They called Anya not to mediate but to apologize, truly apologize for their blindness, for not believing her, for allowing Liam to hurt her so deeply. Months passed. Anya slowly began to heal. The raw wound of betrayal began to scab over, leaving a scar but no longer bleeding. She focused on her career, on her friends, on rebuilding the life she had put on hold. She learned to set boundaries, to protect her own peace, to distinguish between helping and enabling. She realized that her worth was not tied to her ability to fix others, or to gain external validation. She found a quiet strength in her independence, a resilience she hadn't known she possessed. Liam, meanwhile, was at rock bottom. He found a menial job, working long hours for minimum wage, trying to chip away at the mountain of debt that loomed over him. He was a shadow of his former self, his charisma gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed weariness. The arrogance had been replaced by a profound, crushing humility. He was living in a small rented room, a stark contrast to the lavish lifestyle he had briefly enjoyed. One evening Anya received a message. It was from Liam. Not a blustering demand, not an angry accusation, but a simple, raw apology. It was short, devoid of excuses, acknowledging his lies, his cruelty, his profound ingratitude. He didn't ask for money, didn't ask for help. He just said he was sorry, and that he understood now what he had lost. Anya read the message, her heart a complex mix of emotions. The pain was still there, a dull ache, but it was no longer all-consuming. She thought of the boy he once was, the brother she had loved. She thought of the man he had become, and the ruin he had brought upon himself. She didn't reply immediately. She needed time. Time to process, time to decide if the chasm he had created could ever truly be bridged. True healing, she knew, was a long and arduous journey, and it required more than just an apology. It required sustained effort, genuine change, and a deep understanding of the damage caused. She had learned her lesson about enabling and protecting. She would prioritize her own well-being now. The family was forever changed. The facade of perfection had shattered, but perhaps in its place, a more honest, albeit fractured, foundation was slowly being laid. Anya had found her own strength, her own path, independent of the approval she once craved. Liam was facing the consequences of his choices alone, but perhaps for the first time truly seeing himself. Do you think some people are fundamentally incapable of change? Or does every individual deserve a chance at redemption, no matter how much they've hurt others?